situations where using your vision to help you hear might be useful. Yeah.
We were talking about, like, if you're on a audio call with somebody like Skype or something like that, where the audio might be a little weird, that you would rely on the visual cue to say, okay, that's what they really said.
That's a good modern day example, like where we have these weird visual and auditory signals because of technological sort of hiccups. Yeah.
There's also those wonderful bad lip reading videos on
Right.
YouTube. You can have them without this.
Yeah, it really does help. I've been thinking about adding that in somehow, but maybe that's too much. But yeah, I think that's great, right? And like when it was noisy in here a little bit ago, right? When you were talking to people, you might not have realized it, but you could have been looking at their lips more than you thought, right? This is a useful thing to be able to do in the real world, which is another reason. We can talk about high-level concepts like top-down, bottom-up processing, but I like this because you can connect it to real-life situations for students. And people who are having difficulties hearing can rely on this more, those sorts of things, and they may have noticed that. So, it opens up a lot of conversation. And one of the things I wanted to challenge myself to do is to stretch this out to other classes. So just quickly before my time's over, in biological psychology, we have studied the McGurk effect and found that regions like the superior temporal sulcus are involved in integration of auditory and visual information and the parietal cortex, and they've done lots of cool studies with fMRI and even transcranial magnetic stimulation. In developmental psychology, this shows up around 5 months, maybe 4 months of age, and you can talk about that, the implications for that. In research methods, it would make a great project, because there's all these variations you can do, change the syllables. Does it work with full words? The original McGurk effect is more about fusing 2 different syllables and getting a new percept. There's all these different variations. There's lots of great studies that you could work out for that. And there's language differences, or cultural differences even, with this, that exists out there between West and East and things like that. And then finally, in things like clinical psychology. So, for example, there's differences in individuals with autism, with schizophrenia, and those are really interesting to bring to bear, because you don't always necessarily think of multi-switcher integration as something going on with those, right? But it can teach us about these disorders and identifying individuals and things like that. So, I really hope you enjoy that. And my email's on there. If you have any questions about adapting it for your class, I'd be happy to talk with you or any other way I can help you understand this. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Yes?
So approximately 35% of my college is multi-language speakers. I wonder if you have any experience with that. Does it still work in a classroom that maybe primarily, mine are primarily Chinese speakers?
Yeah, so you could talk about the differences. Now, the idea with that would be Chinese speakers, at least from some of the research, would show less of an effect. And you can talk about why, which would be super interesting, I think, for them to bring up. And different, like there's a cultural or language difference there. What's the source of that? I mean, people have hypothesized things about how much people look at faces or the tonal nature of the language and things like that. So you can still do the demonstration, and if you find individual differences, that's awesome, So I think it'd be perfect for that. Yeah.
I'm talking about from a clinical perspective, so people who are highly trained to notice what people are saying versus what their face is saying. So what do you think that would do if we tried this out on a bunch of clinicians?
So an expertise. Oh, sorry, yeah. So people who are trained as clinicians to go beyond what their face is saying, or what they're really saying, like emotionally on their face.
Yeah, the words, like people were, and we're always looking at that. Do the words match what you're doing, what your body's doing, what your face is doing?
Right. So there could be expertise effects related to that. I don't know of any studies that have looked at that, but there are actually another expertise effect as musicians. Highly trained musicians are less likely to show the effect, which is interesting, right? So we talk about expertise. There you go. But that's an unexplored one. But yeah, that's a great idea. So again, research methods class. There's an idea. Or with a project, right? I think it's a very rich field. Yeah.
This is more of a comment, but I teach biological psychology a lot, and this is a nice segue to synesthesia, which I think a lot of students love.
Right. So the comment was it's a nice segue to synesthesia. Yeah, and
They love that.
It's when you teach some of those classes, it's harder to talk about. You talk about the different senses, right? So this opens up something very salient to talk about multi-sensory processes, because all these things work together, and we're learning more and more about that. So yeah, synesthesia is also an awesome topic for sure. Yeah.
I was just going to say there's sort of a neat illusion on the web too, where it works the opposite way with the flashes and the beeps.
Yes. Yeah. So I sometimes I show students this, especially in S&P when there's more time. Yeah. So there's Michael Bach has this website with great illusion. It's an amazing website, and you can go the other way. So like vision doesn't always overtake audition. It's not as strong, but you can do it. So it's these two dots will either look like they're crossing if there's no sound, or they get together and there's a sound like that. And the click sound, they look like they're spreading apart, so you get the opposite effect. So that's a great, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
I had students do this in a presentation, and they did it back to back and kept time on their like tapping each other. So they linked arms back to back. So the person in the back was saying, and the person in the front was doing it, and that live interaction with the students was like really appreciated.
So that
Like the students stood linked,
mhm.
and they were really good friends, so they tapped the time of when she was going to say the word, and the other ones perfectly
So having the students tap each other to keep things in sync can help keep things in sync. I usually give them a rhythm together. The good thing is, though, there's a fairly large audiovisual window too, and so even if they're off a little bit, you know, like, which often happens on TV and movies, you can still get because we're flexible, right? We wait for all this information to come in. It's another good place to talk about